Hey guys, we hope that you're having a great week. My name is John Bautista, and you are listening to the Marriage Savvy Podcast. On today's episode, we're bringing back Kim Bowen into the mix. We just finished the Marriage Rescue series that covers some amazing tools that help people work on their marriage. But what about the couples who aren't sure they want to rescue? It's time to talk about discernment counseling. This kind of counseling is all about helping couples through the process of not being sure whether the relationship should continue. What many don't know is that discernment counseling can help you thoughtfully decide whether you should stay or go in the marriage without regret. All that is next, coming up on today's show. The Marriage Savvy Podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be used to diagnose, treat, or act as medical advice. Always seek the advice of your primary care physician, mental health professional, or qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition and/or mental illness. Kim, how you doing?
Hey, John, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's been so long since I've seen your face, so it's so cool to see you.
Thanks. It has been a while. I'm trying to figure out what has been going on in the last several months. It's just a lot. Life's busy.
Yes,
Like,
life is definitely busy.
yeah, life is life. But yeah, I'm back. So,
Well, we are so glad to have you back, Kim. For people that haven't caught up yet, we just finished a 4-part series over phase 1 of the Marriage Rescue Program. Yeah, guys, 4-part series for just phase 1. All right, so you guys got to go check it out. Starting today, I'd like to start a 2-part series that addresses the question, can my marriage be saved or is it time to let go? All right, Kim, here's the first question. What are some of the struggles behind those feelings of staying or going? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, Kim, what are some of the emotional realities? And then also sometimes, like, what are the things that we decide that could backfire? So let's start with the emotions. Like, what is something that people could be struggling with that they don't know whenever they're deciding whether they should stay or go?
well, it's not usually, it wasn't for me. When I was ready to leave my marriage, it wasn't like you just wake up one morning and go, today I'm out today. It can be like that, but usually it's a buildup. And so there's oftentimes, it's a cycle. It's getting your hopes up and getting deflated. It is thinking that, I had some really hard conversations with my spouse. They seem to be hearing me and they're going, we're going to get past this. And then nothing really changes or change isn't sustained. And then it's just this cycle of hopelessness, despair, and maybe this actually can change. And so for me, what happened was after a decade or more of that, I just got so tired. But it built this feeling of true hopelessness. It's like I've done everything I know to do, to communicate, to ask, to try to show up differently myself. And nothing was getting us out of this painful cycle. And for me, that just meant I believe that divorce was the only option at that time. So I think, what do people go through? I think they go through everything. I think there's fear of failure and embarrassment and so much fear of what if I stay and fear of what if I go.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Fear if I stay and fear if I go?
Fear if I go, meaning what is life going to look like after divorce? Can I support myself? What's co-parenting going to look like? Is this going to get ugly?
Mm.
Like how am I going to feel if a stepmom comes in and then I have to share, somebody else's part-time mom? Like that was probably the hardest part as a mom of,
Mm.
sharing the thought of sharing my kids with whoever he might marry next. And the fear of staying of, is this as good as it gets? Am I settling? Fear that I've made the wrong decision either way, that it'll be a wrong decision either way. And it's exhausting. Deciding whether or not to leave your marriage is exhausting. And if it's not exhausting, something's wrong. Like it
Yeah.
should be exhausting. It should be something that is well thought out and intentioned and not a knee jerk reaction of I'm not getting what I want, so I'm out. Like, and sometimes we get that. Sometimes I see clients who maybe they're in an affair, or the grass is always greener lens that people put on, and they're convinced that they want out because they put up with so much for so long, they just want out. And so if you're not struggling with the idea of getting out, then you're not doing some deep work.
Oh,
You're missing an opportunity for some deep work. And we tend to repeat the same patterns. So, first marriages, the divorce rate's pretty high. Second marriage is even higher. Third marriage is exponentially higher than that. So, it's not like we get smarter. We just don't get smarter. We just are trying so hard to alleviate, I call them misery stabilizers. We're just looking for something to get us out of this horrible feeling that we're in,
hmm.
whether it's a new relationship or, you know, a divorce, or we just think we're so unhappy. But, we say this a lot, John, choose your hard. Marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard.
Yeah.
And so it just shouldn't. I caution anyone who, when they come in and they're just done, and one of the first things I want to know is, what have you done to work on the marriage? Because almost always the person who's ready to get out says they've done it all. I did that. I've done it all. I've read all the books. But when I talked to therapists, I did, but when it got right down to it, I really hadn't done it all. I really hadn't turned every stone. And so um, that was a mind shift.
How did you come to that conclusion that you hadn't done it all? Like, was it from outside perspective? Was it through self reflection?
Both. I think um, I wasn't open to hearing that when I wanted out. When I had gotten to that place where I shut off and I'm like, I'm done. Some of that's protection. I don't want to be. It took me so long to get there. Of I want out. I didn't want anything to pull me back into uncertainty again. If
Mm,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Because when you're have you ever had a decision to make, whether to take a job or to sell your business, or, you know, any kind of big decision like that? The not knowing is miserable,
Mm,
right? And so you're in this place of, I don't know if I want to be married or not. So you finally get to that place where I know I don't. And not only that, I've said I don't, so that we are moving now toward the process of separation. The idea of entertaining the fact that maybe this isn't the best time or the right decision pulls you back into that uncertain exhaustion. And I wasn't open to it. So what ended up happening for me, when I told John I wanted a divorce, and we were actually moving, moving to a new house. It was not a good time financially to divorce. It was not a good time emotionally to divorce. And so what we ended up doing was, it was the best thing that ever happened to us. We put a pause on it. We put a pause on moving forward with divorce, but I didn't want to work on it either. We just put a pause on it. And that alleviated a lot of the tension of the push and pull, but we also had to have some groundwork, set some groundwork, because John, because he was anxiously attached and wanted the marriage, he could get suffocating in his checking in with me. How are you doing? Are you sure there's nothing we can do? Can we, you do know I love you, right? Like all the things that people do when they're, afraid to lose, they're feeling very desperate. Um, he had to stop all of that to provide breathing space for me. And when he did that, it was a very slow shift. But what started to happen was, um, the first thing I noticed was I was no longer avoiding being in the same room with him anymore. Like, as the kids were when they're up, it's easy for us all to be together because the focus is on the kids. And when you put them to bed, I would go to another part of the house, or I would go to bed, or I would, I still want to be in the room. I didn't want to have a conversation with him. Like the man's breathing made me want to kill him. Like I was so annoyed with him all the time. And let's be clear, I'm talking a lot about him, but I was impossible as well. I just didn't want to hear that. And I was the one that wanted out, so I had all the power. Unfortunately, that's true.
mm,
The person who cares the least has the most control. But anyway, when we lowered the temperature, and put everything on pause, I just started noticing that I wasn't so eager to leave the room. I wasn't, we'd watch something together on TV. I didn't want to talk, still didn't, we weren't dating. I just was in the room more. And then I think the second thing that I would say I started to notice after that was we started to be a little bit more playful with each other again. We were friends. I tell people all the time, when you have this idea of I love you, but I'm not in love with you, that is usually the best sign that your marriage has a very decent shot of being amazing,
Interesting.
right? That's when you have the most decent shot of having an amazing marriage, even if it isn't amazing now or hasn't been. But when people say I love this person, but I'm not in love with them, like that's a fixable thing. That's very fixable. And so I started to notice that I was having those feelings again of I love him, I'm just not in love with him. And then after that, the pause just kept lasting longer and longer. And then the hope started to flicker just a little bit. And my defenses came down. And then I was more willing to look at my part in this. And it wasn't until that happened that, and it took a strong therapist who could deal with me because I was pretty justified. I mean, I years of being disappointed or whatever, and I felt pretty one up in the relationships. Like I settled. He got a good deal out of this. I didn't. It took a strong therapist to speak some truth into my life, which was, darling, you are not a peach. You've got this idea that you're easier to live with and you're not. And so let's look at you really want to look at your part in this because otherwise you're going to repeat patterns, Kim, whether it's with John or somebody else. And she was absolutely right. Absolutely right. And so I've had people over the last 20 years when I see them come back to me later. They're just so anxious to get a divorce. They didn't want to hear it. Come back to me afterwards, years sometimes, and say, I regretted leaving my marriage. Is there anything I can do to save it now? And I'm like, you've been divorced for 2 years. It's like, yeah. It's like, is your spouse remarried? Well, yeah. Or no, they're not remarried, but they're not interested in talking to me. And I'm like, yeah, probably not. Probably not a good time to try to reconnect with your
Wow.
spouse. So people they do move quickly and then they get themselves in a situation where they are breathing, have the breathing room, right?
Yeah.
And they start to have regrets and they start to realize the grass isn't greener and hard was really hard. And they start to wish that they had slowed things down
Yeah.
when they stood a chance. But I've never had anybody say to me, I did this work of discernment and I regret spending 3 to 6 more months of looking thoughtfully at my marriage.
Hmm.
Mostly because they feel like they earned their way out with integrity, right? They earned their way out instead of just cutting the ties. And I most people don't regret that.
You were seeing a therapist, like you guys would go together and see a couples counselor, or you had your own counselor?
When was
Like,
this? Eventually we went together,
okay.
but no, not at the start. I didn't want to work on the marriage, so I didn't even really want to work on me. I just wanted to be done. But when I started to feel more hopeful again, and John said, "Are can we go to marriage therapy one more time?" And I said, "Yes, one more time. We can go to marriage therapy." But I was really intentional of finding somebody who was pro marriage, but really good and strong in their delivery and in their. I wanted somebody direct. I knew I needed to hear some things. I wanted somebody who would be real direct with me
Hmm.
and real
Yeah.
direct with him.
And that's an observation to take a look at, was that you weren't going to a therapist for discernment counseling. You were just going to a therapist because you thought it was the right thing to do, I'm
Hmm.
assuming.
Yeah, no, I hadn't even heard of discernment therapy when I was going through this with my marriage. I'm not
Hmm.
even sure that was a thing. If it was a thing, I hadn't heard of it. Um,
I hadn't heard of it until I found the marriage place.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know very many practices that do discernment counseling.
I think it's growing. I think more people are doing it because it is helpful and so valuable. It's so valuable to really take a forensic look at where it went wrong and what's going on, and you know,
Yeah, like you would have to be really open to accepting contributions to it. There's something that Amanda had pointed out earlier in an earlier episode, and she talked about how a lot of people fear that if they go to discernment counseling, if they admit, hey, like we need help, that they're going to be quitting their marriage, like they're going to quit it.
hmm. Just to even go to discernment means I'm going to quit it.
Yeah, like oh,
Yeah.
like we're already on the way out. You know, this is probably like the last step. But she had mentioned that it's actually not quitting; it's moving towards clarity with integrity.
Yeah, it is. It's changing the focus. It's not about quitting, it's about shifting the needle of where your focus is. And so when you're in couples work, for instance, when you're working on the marriage, you're trying to build intimacy and connection. You're trying to heal relationship wounds, and you're trying to increase desire for one another, not just physical desire, but emotionally, you know, the way you interact with each other. Discernment is not about that at all. Discernment is about, is this a marriage that I want to participate in? Is my partner able to show up in ways that I need or want to continue? And am I willing to show up in ways that he or I need and want to continue? So it's more like saying, let's take a look at where we are in this process and get, like you said, clarity. Do we have a good understanding of what a good marriage looks like? Are we even on the same page with that? And are you able, or is my partner able to hear the hard stuff? So, for instance, I had a couple years ago, and she came in and she said he's narcissistic, which is a buzzword now. Everybody's narcissistic. All the men are narcissistic. All the women are borderline. Drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Anyway, she said he's narcissistic and he's very controlling. And I am tired of living like this. I don't want to be with him anymore. And he was terrified of losing the marriage. Terrified. He was doing everything he could to say he didn't want to do discernment because to him that meant we're, like you said, that would be ending the marriage. But I'm like, buddy, this is all you got. Like, she's
Mhm.
not willing to work on the marriage. This is your only shot at even potentially getting there. Right? It gives her a non-threatening way to show up because she's not going to hear have more sex, go on date nights, hold hands. Like, that's not what discernment is. Right?
Right.
So she's willing to let her defenses down and maybe explore. But she kept trying to tell him all the ways that he was showing up that was manipulative and destructive. And he really could not hear that. He just would get defensive, angry, prove her point, that he couldn't hear the feedback. And that was a client that I was more blunt and direct with than I usually am. Like, I remember I laid it all on the line for this guy. I'm like, listen, she calls you a narcissist. There's definitely some narcissistic traits here,
You told him
right?
that.
Yes. Yes. I'm like, when your wife says, do not do this, and you decide that she doesn't really mean that,
Mm.
that you know what's best for her and you're going to give her what is best for her, and she's over here saying, do not do that, and you push that on her, like, you are damaging the marriage. She's going to leave you. And I will never forget, he just wouldn't hear it. And so she ended up divorcing him. They actually did divorce. It got pretty ugly.
Mm.
And he came in my office later and he sobbed. He just sobbed in my, I didn't know what to do with this man. He just was sobbing. And I said, how can I help at this point? And he said, I blew it. I blew it. She brought it, you brought it, and I blew it. Is it possible to fix it now? Yeah, it was tough. It was a tough time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I try really hard to get him to get it before it's too late. But that doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't. Man, that's a really tough story to hear because I mean, it's there's so much involved, and hearts are breaking. When we talk about the discernment process or the discernment counseling, like
Mhm.
what kinds of paths are there for people to understand the process, that this is a structured decision making process and not couples counseling? Can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, so discernment's only 1 to 5 sessions.
Okay.
So we try not to let it go longer than 5. Um, and you don't you're not signing on for months and months, and you don't, even have to come to session 2, 3, 4, or 5. So you just have to come to the first one, and then we try to go through the narrative of what happened, what was this relationship like when it was good, when did it become bad, what got bad, why, what have you done to try to fix it, why hasn't that worked, what is your partner not hearing, what are you not hearing or seeing, what do you absolutely have to need, what's your non-negotiables in this relationship. Um, and at the end of each session, but especially that first one, it is, do you have any more clarity on whether or not you want to stay or go, or leave things the way they are? And those are the three options: leave the marriage, work on the marriage for, we ask for 6 months all in working on the marriage, or a period of, like my husband and I, we're just going to put things on pause for a while. We're not ready to make a decision either way. And so, and do we need to meet again to get more clarity to help you get there? And so, up until 5. After 5, what we've discovered is, you're just not wanting to make a decision, and so
Oh,
not making a decision is a decision, right?
yeah.
And so that tends to be how that works.
And thanks for bringing that down. You know, something that Amanda really wanted us to think about as we're talking about this process is that it's not about forcing a decision. Like, we're
Mm-mm.
not trying to force a decision. We're trying to help them feel comfortable in understanding the decisions that they make.
Right. Yeah, and feeling confident, not comfortable, confident. Because even if you decide you need to leave your marriage, it's tough. I don't know that you're comfortable with that. You're just more confident that you're doing the right thing in the right time.
Mm. I think most of the people that I've seen that come in and they're even, you know, entertaining the idea of divorce is because things are not just comfortable anymore.
Mhm.
But confidence kind of takes on this definition of assurance, like you're assured about certain things. You have facts, evidence, yeah, understanding on why you're making the decision that you're making.
Yes. And helping you understand how your partner got to where they are in this as well. And usually when a marriage ends, you've got one leaning in, one leaning out. The one leaning out is more, prone to wanting the divorce. The one leaning in is like, I'll do anything to save it. Oftentimes, the discernment process helps that leaning in partner to get closure and clarity as well. So
Mm.
it can kind of calm things down too, so that maybe the divorce is not so acrimonious if you go that way. But of course, I always like it when we choose to work on the marriage for 6 months, and then, some amazing things can happen in that process. So,
Yeah. And is there anything that you would encourage listeners that are in this limbo phase of whether they should stay or go in the context of discernment counseling?
well, the first is, an individual counselor is the fastest way to go to divorce.
Talk about that.
So I don't know what it is with our profession, but, when a client comes in and they say, I don't know if I want I don't know if I want to stay or go in my marriage." A therapist brings their own, whether they intend to or not, oftentimes their own biases. So for example, John, when he was seeing a therapist, and they're like, if your spouse wants out, there's nothing you can do. You just have to accept it. So there's this idea in my field that if one wants out, it's over and there's nothing you can do. And that may be true, but it's not always true. And so also, I've seen therapists who push a divorce agenda on a client because maybe they were divorced and it turned out better for them, or maybe they don't have the same value system. I mean, for some people, divorce is not just about the lawful union, there's religious aspects to that too, right? So
Mhm.
there's a lot to come for that client to come to terms with, right? They have to they have to find peace in this decision, whether it is with their family members that all have to make adjustments, whether it's their religious values that they have to come to terms with. And not all therapists are equipped or experienced in that enough to help them do that. So be careful who you do individual work with. If you are in this place of, I'm not sure if I want to be married or not, you don't want an echo chamber. You don't want an individual therapist can easily slide into this echo chamber of taking your side. Your spouse is the bad person. They're only hearing one side of the story. And so it's really easy to be like, yeah, that's hard. I don't know how anybody, and a relationship therapist or somebody who's focused on the system and knows that it's a two-party system. It's you and your partner and how you show up together, right? It's not about who's the bad guy. I don't care who the sinner or who the saint is. I'm not looking for that. You both are in this and you're both affecting the atmosphere. And so we don't try to look for the bad guy. We try to look for what is the pattern? What is the attachment wounding here? Where is the distress? And what is your role in it? And so you've got to have somebody who's equipped enough to do that. So if I am thinking about ending my marriage, I want a relationship therapist to help me walk through that.
That's good because, in couples counseling, I've seen often, people recommend doing individual work as they're in couples counseling. So it's not that we're saying you shouldn't pursue individual work.
No, we do that all the time. We send people to individual therapy all the time. I'm just saying if your goal is to decide if you want to be in a marriage or not, I want somebody who knows about relationships.
There you go. That's good. Well, Kim, it's good to have you back.
Thanks.
And you're coming in with some really good gems, so I'm excited for this episode.
I've got a heart for all this because, I almost made the biggest mistake of my life and left my marriage, and I'm so grateful I didn't. Now our boys are gone, and John and I are traveling and having adventures, and we'll do grandparenting together. I mean, how awful to have had to do that alone. So, yeah, it was good. So I have a passion for it.
Love it. Thanks, Kim.
Okay, John, take care.
All right, let's give it up for Kim Bowen. Man, we always appreciate her insight, her wisdom. That has been our show for today. We hope that you've enjoyed your time listening and tuning in. It always feels good whenever we continue to talk about the relationships that matter most to us and how we can do the work on ourselves in order to show up best for the people that we care about. I've been your co-host, John Bautista, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Marriage Savvy Podcast, where we believe that being savvy about your marriage can help you not get finessed by it. Y'all stay savvy. Peace.